So over the last 10 videos or so, you saw me pull the Roland R-8, which is sitting here on the stand next to me, to pieces. But the big question is, does it work? Well, of course I know the answer. But I'm going to just prove it to you guys. So you can see, actually, it has done the trick. So here we go. And we get the Space Invader effect. There you go. Boom. And up it comes. And there we have a working screen. Now, so when I started the whole R8 restoration thing, it was the screen predominantly was what I was going for, because this lower measure in this part of the screen on the original machine wasn't working. Now, the donor machine, this whole case was horrible. So I've swapped various components in and out. I've also had to do a load of remediation on the machine. You would have seen that if you'd watched parts 1 through 10. And now we have the machine working. But does it make a sound? That's going to be the next question you ask, isn't it? And you have to wait until after the promo to find out. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. So now the screen is working as if it was 1989. I think it's 1989, isn't it, that the R8 was produced. And I've had to change the shooting angle a little bit. And I'll tell you for the reason why is this stand, and since I've been moving things around, I did a whole raft of shooting in here before the sofa arrived. Not that you give a what's it about that. But it also now means that I need to make a change to the camera up above. That is just off camera because it kind of I need to be able to swivel it through 90 degrees, and I need to move it a little bit further this way. So it probably means putting some sort of bracing in. So studio is ever evolving for one reason or another. Anyway, so the first thing is, does it work? Now for that I need to pop a pair of headphones on, because otherwise I can't hear what's going on here. So we'll start with something simple. Kick. That works. Let's try snare. Pedal hi-hat. Clap. Side stick. Rim shot. Closed. Open. Toms. Or either way. Crash. Bell. Ride. Now, one of the things I have noticed through playing with this is that these pads are getting old, and although I've cleaned all the pads up, they're kind of working okay. But I think, you know, going forward it'll probably be sending the controls in through something else. But they are velocity sensitive, so if I tap it, if I thump it, you get something different. So and it kind of, there's a sweet spot on the pad which is kind of just below center. That's the other thing I've worked out. So it works. That's the important thing. Now the other thing about the R8, and the reason why a lot of people went to the R8, was this was kind of the next generation after the 808 and the 909, etc., in which the sounds were generated electronically. Now, the R8, the architecture of the R8 is very much akin to the D50 in terms of how it uses the PCM samples. And if I remember correctly, and I can't remember if I am correct on this, but I think I am, the actual DAC setup is exactly the same on the R8 as it was on the D50. Now that makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because the D50 was, I'm trying to think my years, it was 87 or 88, I can't remember now, but the D50, I think it was 88, well, it was one of those, the D50 came out. So at the same point they were developing the D50, they were probably looking at how did they develop this thing. So this drum machine came out. It's come out with PCM samples as the basis of the sample or of the sound. And what that does is means that if you come and listen to the snare, you can see that it's already had a degree of compression given to it, which was kind of that 80s sound. That was the snare and the kick. That was kind of that sort of, dare I say, Phil Collins-y type sound of the 80s. And that's what they've kind of loaded into here. That was the sound. Now, if you want to hear what it does, and I will put a full video of this, but if we go into song, and it's in song, and I hit start, stop, there it's off it goes. I think I probably need to do a little bit more work on the start stop button, but the key point here is all those sounds that you just heard are generated by this instrument. They're all PCM samples stored as one of the 60. Now this is where it gets interesting, whether it's 68 or 67 sounds that are internal, because the last sound is actually technically a rest. So there you go. So all the sounds that actually came as stock on here. And I say jury's out whether it's 67 or 68, but playing that through, you can hear what this thing was actually capable of when it was being programmed by somebody who understood it. And this year, I intend to be using this a hell of a lot, because it's just got that classic 80s sound. Like S. Ben Crass said, he's the sound of the 80s. I'm a child of the 80s. So my intention is that this thing will be used quite a lot in my music this year. So I had to stop and had to go and look stuff up, because I haven't got it in my head completely. And for those of you who've got an R8, it's well worth delving into the user manual. Specifically, go to page 204, and between 204 and 207 are all the lists of the presets that are already in this machine, which I'll cover in a different video. But the important thing about this is there are 31 preset sounds. Actually, there's technically 39, because what the song does is the song that's in the memory, when you reset it, it occupies 32 to 39. So if you go through that area, 32 to 39, you'll recognise the sequence that was put together as part of the song. So if we go into pattern and I go play, and then I dial in pattern 00. Okay, I'm just going to quickly touch on this. This is the reason why this drum machine screen is such a nightmare to get hold of. So if I just tilt this up, hopefully this comes across much better on the overhead. But there is these 4 boxes here. I do need to get some more plastic polish to get rid of some of those marks. You've got these 3 boxes there, and if I go song, you see that changes. MIDI, that top box is changing to recognise the mode I'm putting it in. And then when I go into, if I go into back to song and I say sound, you see the sound thing comes up, and then various other things, user and pad bank and various things like that. So currently I'm on pad bank C, because that's what it says in there. It's not very visible, and when I do a video on this, I will try and get the camera right in over the top of this. So that's the first thing about why this screen is such a nightmare. Then you've got this part of the screen here, which is underneath it. And that screen is more or less the same screen you get on the Roland R-8. So the Roland R-8 is a very compact screen. It's not got as much information on it as this one has. And it's pretty much that piece there, which is on the R-8. And then when we come over to this the right-hand side of the screen, left-hand, right-hand, you'll see that it actually tells me where the various instruments are and where they're triggered. In terms of, this is a 16 step 2-bar beat. And if I were then to say, okay, I'm happy with that, let's come out of edit mode, go back to pattern mode, like so. If I then hit start stop, you can hear the very simple pattern playing through. Let's stop that. Now what I can do is I can say, okay, start stop, and I can go and pick another pattern. So I'm just going to look at this one. Let's try 07, and it will now swap to 07, which happens to be a bit of a disco beat, as is 08. So effectively what you're getting is you're getting 2 bars, and then it will swap at the next operable moment, just like that. And let's go and have a look at something else quickly. Let's go and look at a swing beat. Right, you get the theory. Now, one of the interesting ones on here is one of the presets is this one, 31, which is just literally a click track. So if all you want to do is you just want to click and you're playing something else, you've got the click track there. Now, there is also a click when you start to record patterns, which is very similar to this, but it's a slightly different function. And I'll go into the setup of that at some point as well. It's a while since I've played with this machine, I have to be honest, but it's something I really want to get into. But that gives you kind of an overview of the Roland R-8 working. Let's say lots more to come on the Roland R-8. It is a very, very versatile machine, and it also has the ability to be your sequencer. So you can actually have this trigger and play as your sequencer in a 2-bar pattern mode, if you like. And why is that important? Well, if you're used to working in kind of the Ableton way, which is where you kind of have slugs of sound basically in bars, this actually works in very much the same way, but it's more hardware orientated as opposed to the Ableton DAW orientation. So from my point of view, this is kind of the hardware version. Yes, there was the MT Roland sequencer, and I can't think of the name off the top of my head, or the correct number for it, but there was a Roland sequencer, or what they called the MIDI recorder, around at the time. And you could record stuff from here directly into that, effectively as your MIDI record, and then play that back on disc. But I just wanted to do this to show it actually does work. It is being incorporated into the studio. So on that note, live long and prosper. See you next time. This project is now complete.